And now, last but not least, we have the speaker of the MBA class 2014, Diego, come up and deliver your speech.
I hope we don't have feedback session after this. My dear friends, partners, guests from around the world, IMD faculty and staff. It's an honor for me to speak on behalf of the 2014 IMD MBA class. And first, I would like to say special thanks for all friends and families that have taken the effort of being here today. It means a lot to us. I would like to ask each of you to look to your beloved host. To be sure, you are now looking to a different person. Here, we were prepared to be courageous. We were prepared to be courageous enough to abandon the past that made us successful. We are not the same anymore. And now we have a different role in our society. To whom much is given, much is expected in return. This year, I learned a lot from people. But it actually started 2 years ago with my grandpa, who taught me 5 key elements to get the most out of life. It was not until this year that I realized how much impactful that 5 key elements could be. Everything started on June 2nd, 2012, which was one of the most important days of my life. That day, 300 people traveled long distance to meet me, including my grandpa. It was a very, very special day. After 1 hour and a half waiting, finally, the most important people that appeared in my life during the last 10 years appeared to say yes. My wedding was incredible. For 12 hours, our close friends and family celebrated us and made that day probably the most special ever. However, one thing caught my attention. Every single person who looked for me to congratulate us mentioned, "Your grandpa is amazing. Where does he find so much energy? Your grandpa is the best." Of course, I know my grandpa very well. For 15 years in my life, I spent every single Saturday on his farm. Only him and me. It was just about us, living the life together. He never raised his voice. I had my own nickname that only he used. He was a real grandpa, like the ones we watch in movies. Still, after so many comments, I started to observe him and seeing him in a new light. So, what was special that night? He was incredible. At 8 years old, he was dancing like an 18-year-old boy. He did not care about his peers. He was just having fun. He was having fun, enjoying life, enjoying Leila, enjoying me, enjoying himself. It was a clear and pure invitation to life. After the wedding, I told my grandpa, "I know you better than anyone. But only today I realized that your energy and your willingness to live as I have never seen anybody doing. How come?" He looked at me, he touched me, and he said, I'm the same I was when I was at your age. While people get older, I just get more experience." You remember Douglas Copeland, the Canadian novelist, who said that when you are young, you always feel that life hasn't yet begun. This life we live is gonna start next week, next month, next year, after the holidays, whenever. Then, suddenly you are old and the scheduled life didn't arrive, and you ask yourself, what happened? How did I end up this way? At this point, my grandpa stared at me and said, "I will never ask this question to myself. The party isn't over yet. The party is over only when the band stops playing. And the band is still going strong." Those words struck me hard. After this conversation, I got interested about the topic and I started an incessant search for the formula. During the journey, I found John Gardner, one of the most well-known professors of leadership. In his speech about personal renewal, he said that we all have seen very fortunate women and men, even ones in fortunate circumstances, running out of steam at a certain point in life. Perhaps life just presented them with tougher problems than they could solve. Perhaps something inflicted a major wound on their confidence and self-esteem. Perhaps they were pulled down by the hidden resentments and grievances that grow in adult life. On the other hand, maybe they just run so hard for so long that somewhere along the line they forgot what is what about. Finally, my experience at IMD helped me to close this understanding. I saw people facing challenges in front of them. Challenges that could easily stop them, but they chose to fight against the unforeseen. If you know Inumna, you know a great example. When she least expected some turbulence, life set a challenge to test her courage and willingness to keep going. Again. At such moments, for someone like her, there was no point in pretending that nothing has happened, or in saying that she was not prepared for that. The challenge would not wait. Life would not look back. Here she is. Do you remember Yuna without that big and beautiful smile? No. She just taught us that happiness is not the absence of problems. Happiness is the ability to deal with them. From my reflections, I found a common ground among my grandpa, John Gardner, and my experience at IMD. They connect the 5 elements: learning, growing, enjoying, daring, and loving. These all elements need to live a full, and you need these 5 elements to live a full and happy life. And this is exactly what I think IMD showed to us this year. In my opinion, this was about understanding these factors. The combination of them allowed us to become very different from January. Think about all collective and individual accomplishments this year. How many times in our lives we reach so many outcomes in 1 year? How many times did we think we were capable to learn some topics or change as a person? We arrived here with strong convictions about life, directions, personalities, points of view. In a few weeks, IMD started to massage us, to make us soft, and little by little open our minds, to learn, to grow, to enjoy, to dare, and to love. Let me show what I mean. I will talk about these 5 factors using some examples I saw this year. I hope some of you enjoy the fact that we were able to be a reference when I think about these things. You were not unique doing that, because the whole class did. But for sure, you were remarkable. Let me start with learning, looking back to January. Everybody was excited. Everything was following the natural flow, until a tiny and shy person stepped on the stage. At first, the thin voice was weak. Suddenly, strong and straight words started to fly around and put us against the wall for the first time. After explaining her 5-year period at a large corporation and a financial institution, she said, as Chinese cities rapidly develop, millions of people are being left behind. Children as young as 10 are dropping out to farm or to work in factories. If education is the key to escaping poverty, then there are 200 million children in China facing daunting, if not impossible odds. I don't deny my intention to be a successful businesswoman. However, my role in the society is much larger than this. During 3 years, I dedicated myself to ensure that one day, every child enjoys access to a quality education. And you, she asked, if you consider yourself a leader, where's your courage to dedicate just a few years of your life to do something different for the world? For many of us, the learning process about ourselves started that day. Our concepts of leadership, our concepts of our roles in our society. And on top of that, we were learning about faith and how to be more human. Another one of you was empathic about learning and improving yourself, which is to say, growing. On May 11th, I had the most enjoyable dinner of this year. We were in the peak of IMD workload, and a homemade dinner shared by 6 people during the end of a beautiful day was exactly what we need to relax. For 1 hour and a half, our host was just working and let us feel relaxed. However, at a certain point in time, he stopped cooking and just joined us. Once he sat down, he was received with one question. Hey, why are you doing it? Why are you here? Unconsciously, our brains prepare to listen the most common answers, which are related to career service, which are related to jobs, which are related to leadership skills, and etc. But the first 4 words were balancing our instinctive reaction. To change my country. That was the answer. From that, it was a class. A real professor is stepping in and showing the real value of a personal and professional growth. I listened during 15 minutes, a dreamer looking for growth. He started saying that a few years ago, he and 3 friends with common values and dreams sat down and started to brainstorm. Youth, full of energy and without any mental constraints that sometimes we accept, he started to explain the plan. They grew in an environment where their country appeared as one of the new winners in the new economic chess game. After decades suffering with catastrophe and domination by a foreign, their country rose from the ashes and showed the world that things were changing. However, in the 90s, their economy lost steam and together part of their confidence. Inspired by the necessity to shape the future of their country, 4 friends took a decision. They defined 4 different paths that each of them would follow. After growing, they would rejoin to work for their country. However, 4 different Japanese will be back with different mindsets. Together, they will try to change their country. A dream? Well, is it really possible to grow more than the average without dreaming? That night, he changed my way to understand growth. Patience to accept the long-term view. The strength to surpass barriers. Commitment to think big. Engagement to lead and to be led. This year was a year of growth. And Satoshi, for sure, was one of my professors. But how could we survive the year without turning our attention from learning and growing? And why do we always think being professional as being so serious? What is the point of having life so straight and black or white? Why do we sometimes try to be older than we really are? This year was a clear example of how joy is an important factor to let us be more innovative, to renew our strengths, and to build a good environment to people and to lead them. I like to think about 2 very special persons. During 1 year, I have never seen them angry or sad, anytime. They show us that enjoying life depends much more on our attitude than on our circumstance. To enjoy ourselves, we don't need anything other than the will to do so.